Welcome into the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Got a very exciting show for you today, folks. We have a special guest with us, and we're going to talk a little bit today about life, death, healing from death, and the process of life and death, and how we move forward past loss. You know, one of the main things that this show has been built on since 2006, it's hard for me to even get through that, the fact that this show's been around for that long, is the fact that this show was built on grief. It was built on grief and loss, and it was built on the fact that it was questioned at one time what was on the other side. And believe me, at the very nexus, at the very genesis of this program was the fact that myself and Dave, when this show was started with the idea that we were searching for what exactly was out there. And two regular guys taking you on a journey and trying to figure out what exactly, not exactly what was out there, but what exactly came after this. And through this 18 years, 18 years, hard to, sometimes I think about how quickly it's gone by, but through this 18 years, we've talked to hundreds, if not almost 1,000 guests now about this funny journey called life. And what's on the other side, and how people have developed special gifts and seen what's on that other side. The special person I brought in today has a special set of gifts and has had this special journey and has had it in her own special way. And I want to bring her in and talk about the special journey because it's unusual. Not only unusual, but I think you'll be blown away by what she's been through, what she's seen, and her outlook on life. I find it absolutely astounding. So let's bring her in now. Susan Grau is an internationally celebrated celebrity intuitive medium, author, soul healer, and speaker. In addition to working as a professional medium and life path intuitive, Susan's diverse range of certifications include Reiki Master, I believe it is it
Diksha.
Diksha practitioner, Susan, right?
Yes.
Okay. Karuna practitioner and certified CADC2 addiction specialist. Additionally, she is a licensed hypnotherapist specializing in past life regression, a respected professional teacher of the metaphysical arts, and an honorary member of the Healing Touch Professional Association, or HTPA. Susan specializes in grief therapy, guiding people to healing and recovery. Susan's just released her new book, which we're going to talk about today, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, by Hay House. It is a deep dive into the soul's journey, offering insights in healing from grief and the afterlife, and is now available to order on her website. We've got a link to that website right here in the description of this program. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome in for the first time to Darkness Radio, Susan Grau. Hi, Susan.
Hi. Nice to be here, Tim.
It's a pleasure to have you here on this program. I mentioned in the beginning of the program, when we first started this journey 18 years ago, it was about fear of what was on the other side. I think a lot of us have fear and trepidation. I think it's normal, right? I think you could say that as someone who's got that degree hanging on the wall, that fear is a normal thing, right?
Absolutely. It's
Is
part of our makeup.
is terrifying fear a normal thing?
Well, depending upon what's happening in front of us, it can be, being locked in a freezer was terrifying fear. It depends upon what we're looking at, but I think death has a fear base that we weren't born to have. We developed that over time. That's why many countries don't have the fear of death, because they have not been raised with that belief system that it's.
One second here, Susan. I'm having an issue with your microphone. I don't know. Give me a test real quick here.
1 2 1 2.
For
Let
some
me
reason,
see.
I'm not. I think it's on my end.
Yeah, it's not mine. I just had to check.
You're coming through here, but for some reason, you're not coming through on my.
1, 2.
Say something again here.
Hello, hello. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello.
That's weird. Hold on, just one second here. Uh, I'm sorry. Hold on, just one second.
No, no, it's okay.
I just noticed on my backup that I'm not getting you on. I know on my backup you're recording, but on my it dropped out on my
Was it working before?
yes, it was working before and now it's not.
Okay.
What is going on here? I'm sorry, just one second.
You're good.
Um, yeah, it's zeroed out my. Hold on, just a second. I'm going to stop the file here on my audio, and then I'm going to start a new, and then just for the backup. That's all. Okay. Give me check 1 2 here.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Odd. Okay. See something here. Edit preferences. Audio hardware. Um,
I'm just letting someone know I'm going to be a little late.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not you. I got so involved in my talk, I would have been late either way.
Um, Pro channel.
I just didn't want you to think I was rude here, just like digging in my phone.
That's okay. Okay, give me one more here. Give me a check 1 2.
1, 2, 1, 2.
There it is. Okay.
Okay.
Now it came back. Okay.
And the last name is Grau.
Oh, Gra. I'm sorry.
That's okay, just for future reference.
Okay. Let me do this here. Okay. All right. Now we're rolling with that. We'll go 5 4 3 2 Okay, so terrifying fear. That's where we were at. Okay, so terrifying fear. Uh, I'm sorry. Do you remember where you were at to pick it back up?
I think so.
Okay.
Um, so I believe that, what we fear, we feed. And so it becomes a terrifying fear. But, in other countries, they were not taught to be afraid of death. And here we are. And in this particular, ethnicity,
Mhm.
we believe that, death is something to be afraid of, but we aren't born with that fear. And that's what I want to get across is we're born, life and death are equal in value and they look the same. We fight coming out, we're fearful, we're when we're giving birth, the baby doesn't want to come, and then it comes out, it gets poked and prodded, and then it gets wrapped in a blanket of love and put in its parents' arms, and happiness evolves, right? They feel loved and safe. It's the same thing with leaving the planet. We are afraid, we fight it, we don't want it, we don't know what to look at, we don't know what it's going to look at like for us. And we get poked and prodded and we are fighting it. And then we cross, we're wrapped in a blanket of love and we are safe. And so it's very equal in value and it's so similar. And if we can see it that way, we lose some of that fear base. But it doesn't change the fact that, death to us is gone. And to me, death is not gone.
Okay.
And, so I have a different viewpoint, obviously, from my experience, but that doesn't change. I fear how I'll die, but I certainly don't fear being dead.
That's an interesting statement. Let's go to that statement real quick. You fear how you'll die. What is it about the physical experience of death that you fear?
Pain, suffering. Um, when I was in the freezer, for those that don't know, I was locked in an unplugged freezer in a garage just at almost 5 years old, and I passed away. And when I was there, I felt that fear of not being able to breathe. And so, knowing that something terrible was going to happen and I was in terror. So I'm not looking forward to having any kind of death experience. However, once you cross on the other side, it's peaceful and beautiful and amazing. And you're wrapped in a blanket of warmth and love and you're safe.
Now, Susan, if I can, I hate to bring you back to that place, but let's talk for a moment about your memories from when you were 5 and what was that like for you? What do you remember as far as that moment, or what were you doing that you went to that freezer, that you actually got locked inside the freezer? And what do you remember from those memories of feeling yourself dying, I guess?
Well, I was playing fort with some boys, and they told me if I wanted to keep playing that I had to get up in the freezer and get popsicles, but the freezer wasn't plugged in and it was in our garage. And I was too little to really understand that. I just wanted to get popsicles so bad. And so I climbed up just to see if they were in there. And they closed the freezer door. And at first I thought that I was on a game. We were playing a game and I wasn't afraid at all. And then I heard the thud of the garage door. And I knew at that moment I was not playing a game and that I was in serious trouble because I couldn't get out. In those days, you couldn't get out of a freezer, and many children died. And I remember screaming in terror, absolute terror. My mother, I said she actually, so the garage was separated from our house, so it was quite a distance and for a child. And my mother said she heard the screaming, but she thought it was such a high pitched sound. She thought it was a cat in heat mating. It was that high of a pitch sound. So that's the sound of terror. It is the highest pitch scream you can imagine. And so she ignored it.
What?
Yeah. And because she had heard that sound before. And so she just thought, my mom had a gift and they had put my mother in a hospital and drugged her, medicated her. And so she wasn't all herself and her intuition anyway as a mom. So unfortunately, she just didn't respond. And I kept screaming. And then I tried to get out. I couldn't get out. I couldn't turn around. I was just stuck facing inward. And I remember these three beautiful lights coming in front of me. I didn't stop screaming. I was still in terror. And they told me, stop screaming. And I didn't. I just kept going. And then I saw them move and I saw one. It was almost like it stepped forward, but there was no stepping. It was not a body. It was a light, a beautiful, bright light. And I heard Susie stop screaming very firmly, like a child would hear to take a breath. We're going to get your mommy. And I kind of felt like they were butt firsting me, but first, but
Yeah.
they didn't say it.
Okay.
And then I was at the bottom of a stairway and I was looking up and it was cracked and old. And, I'm going to share this experience as an adult woman. I am not going to share it as a child because I didn't understand it then, but I can give it words now. And I remember it being like a Greco-Roman room I was looking up into. And I knew that there was something in the center of that room, like a well or a hole. And I remember thinking, how am I going to get up these stairs? And they were cracked and broken and old. And there were pillars, and this room had an open ceiling. And when I made that statement in my head, how am I going to get up there? Because I was very jello-y. So I didn't feel like I could walk up those stairs. Um, and it seemed like it was forever. And yet I could see the end, but it felt like it was just infinite
Mhm.
stairs, but it wasn't. And I don't know how to describe that any other way. And the next thing I knew, I was at the edge of this well. And when I studied under Dr. Raymond Moody to get my doctorate, and I said to him, Raymond, I didn't see the tunnel. Why didn't I see the tunnel? And I was an adult woman saying this to him. And he said to me, Susan, did you ever think that the well could have been the tunnel? And I was like, what? Oh my God, what? I mean, it was like that aha moment where the light bulb goes off and you go, it all makes sense. But it didn't for so long. And I was really discouraged that I didn't get to see that tunnel, because he wrote all about it. He wrote Life After Life and,
Yeah.
studying near-death experiences. He was the founder of that. So anyway, um, I remember, feeling like I wanted to look into this well, and I wasn't afraid. I was at the edge of it, and I wasn't afraid. And my lights were on my left, and I call them my angels. So what's what I'm going to call them from here on out. And I called them my light angels, and they were on my left. And I looked down into this well, and I saw movement. And what I see now when I look at it in my mind's eye, because it's so clear to me, was DNA, one consciousness moving in words. And it was twirling and spinning, and it was words. And I was hearing things, and visually I would see the words, but I wasn't able to read that well. So I was experiencing the words, like I knew what they were. And I would hear, I say here, things like, my mother has cancer. Please, God, don't let her die. And then I heard, I'm going to turn 16 and my dad won't let me have a car. Please, God, tell him to give me a car. And I was hearing all these different desires or prayers. And I asked them, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires. And of course, being a child, I wanted to know, because now I'm going to say these things. Do you answer all those? And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them. And I was upset that they said that. I thought, my mom says that to me, just because you want it doesn't mean it's good for you. So I was shocked to hear that. I didn't understand what they meant. I do now.
Yeah.
Sometimes we desire things that really aren't good for us, but I didn't understand it then. I thought that was mean.
Yeah.
And yeah. And
Yeah.
how weird is that? Like, why would they say that to me? And then I flashed on this, what I called the yellow brick road. I'd seen The Wizard of Oz. Now, as I'm telling this story, it's very detailed, and so I'm going to move through it very quickly.
Okay.
But I want to say this. Somebody asked me on a podcast, actually, and I've been asked this so many times that I already, know how to respond. But they said, how do you remember all this at 4.5 years old? Like, how do you remember this in such detail? And I asked them, have you ever seen The Wizard of Oz when you were a child? And they go, yes. And I go, do you remember the ruby slippers? Yes. Do you remember the Tin Man? Yes. Do you remember he had a tin can on his head? Yes. You remember the lion and the courage and the dancing little guys? And oh, yeah, yeah, I remember all that. It's that impressive that I remember it.
I would even go one step further and say, do you remember the first time you ever stepped into an amusement park, or do you remember the first time you met something larger than life as a child? How could you ever forget?
Right. You just
Right?
don't forget.
You just don't
And,
forget.
people say, well, how come adults have different experiences? And I tell them, if we go to Disneyland, you and I,
Mhm.
you're going to experience it completely different than I am.
Right.
And if I'm a child, the way that I view Disneyland next to an adult would be night and day. Now, it's not that the afterlife is Disneyland, but that's an experience you don't forget. So that's another way of looking at it. So I would view my experience different than an adult who passed away and came back. So, and I know this because as an adult, I had another experience. I had a brain tumor and I had another experience. And so I know this is an adult woman. And I saw it very differently, but yet it was the same. But I viewed it differently with my mind's eye.
Okay.
So, moving forward, I saw this yellow brick road, and they explained to me. I saw people paving this path and pulling from pyramids at the bottom of a pyramid, and they were dropping to their knees and saying, for the love of God, help me, nothing's working out. They were trying to pave their path. And I watched these beautiful beings come in and remove the pavers and put them to the bottom of the pyramid. And I just knew that was their life balance. Their life journey was becoming unbalanced, because if you pull from the bottom of a pyramid, that's what happens. Kind of like Jenga.
Yeah.
Now, later on in life, it wasn't Jenga then. There was no Jenga, but I understood. And these light beams went to the top of this pyramid and pulled these pavers off, and they started paving the path. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, we are the pavers, you are not. All you have to do is walk it. And I said, how do you know if you're walking it right? I know these put these questions in my head, as a child, but I asked it. And they said, we bless and block everything, and make no mistake. You can get through it battered and bruised at best, or you can shift. And when you see another block, you shift again. And when you see another block, you shift again. And before you know it, will be there, Susie, paving your path. You think with your brains, basically, you know what's best for you. We know what's best for you. Never forget this. What you try to control controls you, and what you run from chases you. And I've never forgotten that. Did I listen on my journey? Absolutely not. I tried to control everything on my journey, and I ran from things I didn't want to deal with. And I was just like every other human. However, I never forgot that. And so, and then just moving forward, because otherwise it would take us hours. I
Sure.
flashed to another room, and I saw what I would call today virtual books or tablets or something, but I didn't know what virtual was, but I saw it moving through the room, and it would come in front of people, and they would say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to learn this, and my soul's going to expand. And they were so excited, and they were like families. And I watched these light beings, these angels, say to them, no, that's way too much. And I call that the PhD in hardships. Which I had. I have two brothers and a mother that died by suicide, and I was trafficked as a child. I had a very, very painful grief journey. And I will tell you that I didn't realize that we made our decisions, some of them, of what we were going to learn. And does that mean that, we plan out suicide? I don't think so. I think we meant to learn grief, and how that comes to us is how it comes to us. And so it was very prevalent in our journey. Regardless, they said to me, I said, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of knowledge. Now, people call that the Akashic Records. I've never understood that name, although I honor it.
Okay.
But for me, it's the room of knowledge. And then they said, they were telling these people, well, you do have free will. And they said, I can do it. And they were gone. And I said, where did they go? And they said they went to their next incarnation. Now, I had no idea what they meant. I just accepted it because they said it, just like a child does. And later on in life, someone said to me, do you believe in reincarnation? And I went, again, the light bulb. There's that what? That word. I knew what it meant. And I didn't know how I knew, but I remembered. And it was like this aha moment again of, oh my God, I know this word. I saw it. They told me this word, and I saw it with my own eyes, or what I thought were eyes. And another place I call them rooms, but I want to tell you that I don't believe they were rooms, they were places. But I don't know how else to describe it, and they didn't know how else to say it to me. So it was the room of heart's desires, the room of knowledge, and I could understand that it was a different place. And so then I flashed on the room of companions, and it was an open field, and it was our animals, and on all these beautiful creatures of love, and even though some of them were frightening animals, they were love animals. I can't describe that,
Okay.
but for me as a human, a bear would be very frightening, or a wolf would be very frightening,
Yeah.
but I wasn't afraid of them. They were filled with love,
Huh.
and they were peaceful and kind and good. And I was in this field where there were daisies and dandelions, that you blow on. And I was sitting down, and I was little, and I had this cute little dress on. I don't think I've ever shared that. And it had big daisies on it. And I loved this dress, but I had that dress as a child. So that's so interesting to me. And I just knew I had that dress on. I didn't see it, but I just knew. And that dress always was my favorite dress. And I felt safe in it, and loved and beautiful and precious. And so that's what they made me believe was there. And then I, this part's hard. I looked to my left, and I saw this mountain, and this beautiful being, indescribable, was there. And I wanted to climb this mountain. I just wanted so bad to climb this mountain and be next to this love. And I couldn't. And I remember this light beam, this amazing love. Fill me, come towards me and fill me. I was everything and I was nothing. I was perfectly perfect. There wasn't any imperfection. I was just love. I was love.
Hmm.
And I was overwhelmed. Sorry.
That's okay. Take your time.
I've never felt that love since in my journey. I think I've searched for it my whole life, but I never found it. So I became very codependent in my journey, wanting to be loved. Just love me. I'll do anything you want. Just love me. And I wanted to feel that again.
Hmm.
Let me take a breath here.
Sure, go ahead. I suppose
And
it's
so,
pretty hard to measure up to that too. I mean, that's
oh,
if you're talking about
impossible.
that kind of perfect love, there's
I
nothing
can't
that
even love that
exists.
way.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so unconditional.
right.
And we are love. People say to me, what if I don't see the light? And I said, oh, but you don't understand. You are the light. You are the light. And if you just knew that, your world would be so different.
Hmm.
So anyway, I looked to my right and I saw, I don't know why, but I saw a cobblestone cottage and I saw my light beam come, a light angel basically come out of this cottage and come to me. And, there's so much in between this. But they told me it's time to go. And then they took me to the water's edge and explained to me that we come through water. And I didn't understand. And now, knowing how we're birthed, of course I do,
Hmm.
but I didn't. And I thought they meant that they were going to clean me up because I was sitting in a field and I was going to go see my mommy and they were going to give me a bath, basically. And I stepped into the water. And my mother said during this time, she kept hearing, your baby's in the freezer. And she finally listened.
Wow.
And she went out to the garage and she saw the garage door closed. And my recall, my mother's not here anymore. So my recall is that she said to me that she thought she can't open that garage door. She's too little. And so she was going to turn around and something told her to go in. So she went in. She opened the freezer door. She saw me. She spun me around and I was ashen with blue tip fingers. And my mother said that she thought, "Oh, I got to get somebody. I've got to get help." And she dropped me. She let go of me basically and went running because there were no cell phones. And she was screaming and running and going to call an ambulance. And I cracked open my jaw and I took a breath. I still have the scar. I'll never get rid of it. Even if I get a facelift, I'll never get rid of it.
Yeah.
Um, but um, when I came back from that, I could see spirits. Now, there was this one area, I don't always share about it, but I don't know why. I just feel compelled that I saw this. I would call it a giant pyramid with crystal clear. It was clear like water. And I remember walking towards it and they just stood there and let me. And I tried to put my hand in it because I could see what I would think were my loved ones or bodies, people moving inside of it. And I wanted to get in there. I wanted to see them. I wanted to feel their love. And I had never, experienced death outside of animals. And so I didn't know who they were, but I knew they loved me. And so I went to reach in and I couldn't. And then I somehow knew that if I could, I would not be coming back.
Really?
That was the next stage of that was that was the heavens or whatever we choose to call it.
And that was during your NDE.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And when I woke up, when I felt better and I woke up and was well, I could see spirits. They were everywhere. And I thought they were the boogeyman. I was too little to connect the dots. And I would cover my head and say, go away, go away, go away. And they didn't go away. And my whole life, they visited me and talked to me and tell me, I'm so and so's brother's best friend and I just died and you're going to hear I died and I didn't do it on purpose. Please tell them. And I would have that information. And then I'd hear the next day that they died. I didn't know that was called a medium. I actually, when my Nana died, she came to me loud and clear. I didn't know she died. I found out the next day from my parents, and she came in the middle of the night. I was wide awake and I couldn't sleep. I was frozen. And I call it paralysis because when we are afraid, we jump up, right? And they go away. So they want to freeze us, basically. So for those people out there that, and I know there's so many of them that have felt paralyzed and they see things, it's not fear that's paralyzing you, it's them. And it's just for a moment. And it's just so that you take a moment to witness them and maybe allow them in to talk to you. So don't be afraid of it. Um, so I ended up the next day finding out she died, and I was so bizarrely freaked out by that. And I had read in the newspaper, because there wasn't internet, I had read in the newspaper that UCLA Medical Center was studying ESP, extrasensory perception.
Mhm.
And I was interested because I had such intuition, and my whole life, it was my abnormally normal journey. So I was really interested. So I called them and I told them what happened. And he said, "Oh, it sounds like you're a medium." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "People who talk to dead people." And I hung up the phone and I never spoke of it. I was like, they're out of their minds. It scared me. There's the fear.
Right.
And so I always said, "Go away, go away." And then I just started to know things at I became a therapist and worked with, grief and addiction. And I would know things about their families that died. And they would tell a friend, and they would tell their mother, and they would tell their brothers. And it just went from there. And I ended up doing mediumship more than I did addiction. And then I started doing grief. I became a grief specialist, and I started doing grief and more than addiction. And then I started doing mediumship. And I didn't want to be a medium. I didn't want to do it. It's very hard work. We deal with the most darkest possible painful loss, which I had. So I know how painfully difficult it is. And I didn't want to deal with that all the time, but I wanted to help people because I got through it. And I used my own journey, which I think was meant to be, so that I could help others that go through that, um, to help me heal and grow and expand.
Let me ask you this, Susan, because how old were you when Nana came to you?
I think I was 18 or 19, I believe. I'm 65, we're talking a lot of years ago. So remembering that's not so easy. But I know that it was mind blowing.
What's your, it's easier to remember feelings than necessarily what the dialogue was, but what was the feeling when you first feel her come through? And then how do you wrap your head around the fact that she came to you and you know she's no longer with you? How do you reconcile that? Do you feel responsible?
No, I was in shock that she was in front of me, and I didn't know who she was at first. And I was saying, go away, like I always do.
Hmm.
And my husband was sleeping next to me, and I was wide awake. And she started telling me a little bit of her story, and then she started to fade away, because once they realize that they're frightening you, they go.
Okay.
They don't want to scare you. And I remember going, "Nana," like I just knew it was her because of what she said. And she came fully back in, and I could see her, and she was sitting in a rocking chair rocking. And she was kind and loving and beautiful. She was my Nana, and I loved her. I was extremely close to her. And so I didn't feel fear, but she said some things to me. And then I remember waking up my husband at the time and saying, um, "I can go to sleep now," when she left. And how she left was really bizarre. And it happens to me all the time. She went into a ball of light with spears off of it, like the sun almost, and went into the corner of the room up above and just dissipated.
Hmm.
And that's how they leave, very often for me.
Yeah.
So you'll always see me when I do readings. I never look at my client because I don't want to read their body language. That's not fair to them. So I always tell them I'm going to be looking over here, and I'm always looking at the corner where it comes together, because that was my experience. And that's where they come and go for me. And then they move around the room, you know.
Why, uh, for lack of a better term, why the techno pyrotechnics when they leave? What's with the show when they leave? Is it just the way that
I think it's
it happens?
efficient.
Yeah.
If you think about the fact that it's like a hologram, our
Okay.
bodies, because it's all energy and it's light energy. So if you are a hologram coming through a wall, or coming to visit, you might frighten someone. But if you're a ball of beautiful light, you travel quicker. It's more efficient. It's a travel mechanism, I think. And I'm guessing because I don't know, but that's what it feels like to me. It's efficient to travel that way. It's kind of like it's efficient to pack your luggage and carry it instead of carrying it in your arms. It'd be a lot of stuff to carry.
Hmm.
You pack up your luggage and you carry one thing. It's the same kind of efficiency.
Okay. Did Nana, and one quick question about Nana here, and then we'll go to our break. Does Nana appear to you the way she appeared to you before she passed, or does she look much younger? Does she choose to take a form that is pleasing to her or to you?
Both. So my Nana came to me. She was beautiful, but she was old in a rocking chair.
Okay.
So I knew it was her.
Okay.
But I have usually when they visit me in my office to work, they come around 33 to 36 years old, I would think. That's where I kind of see them. But I know that they were elderly or I know that they were children. And then they'll show me that after they've visited me. But they love to present as young in their most prime. And I think that's the prime, I guess, because that's how I see them. And many mediums say that.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I I always wonder to myself, eventually when I go and I come back, because I know I'll come back because I want to at least want to jaw with my nephews, right? Uh,
Yeah.
how I'll present myself, because I don't know. I tend to think I look a little better now than I did when I was younger. So,
Well, and you may, but you were more active and more light energy. When you were younger, we have more actual life energy. As we grow older, our life energy is beginning the process. I think they say it starts at 30, but we start to age and grow older. So our light energy isn't as strong. We may look more pleasing, but our light energy isn't as strong. So I think that
sure.
might have something to do with that. I've never been asked that question, I never
Yeah.
even thought about that.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, I tell you what, we'll take a break. When we come back, I do want to ask you a little bit about Dr. Moody and studying under Dr. Moody. Maybe what you took away from Dr. Moody, because it's quite the interesting mentor to have. Uh, Also, when we come back, I want to ask you, I want to delve deeper into grief. And let's delve deeper into some of the lessons that we can take away from life and death and this big go round that we have. The book is Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons. It's available by Hay House. We have a link in the description of this program, so you can go out and get that book and start to heal from some of the maybe some of the loss that you've had yourself. Um, and We'll get into some of these life lessons, and we'll talk about some of these life lessons with Susan when we come back from our break. Susan Grau is our guest, and we'll get into life, death, and some of the other lessons that Susan has accrued through her journey when we come back right here on the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm Tim Dennis. My guest is Susan Grau. The book is Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, Wisdom from the Spirit World on Living, Dying, and the In-Between. That's the entire name of the book. I shortened it at the break, but that is the entire name of the book. It is available by Hay House right now. We have a link in the description of this program, so you can go and get that book. And before the break, you had mentioned earlier in the program, Susan, that you had studied under Dr. Raymond Moody, who we've had on this program many years ago. It's been actually it was quite a few years ago, and an interesting person at that. I believe Dr. Raymond Moody was the inventor of the psychomantium, if I remember right.
I actually studied that and got licensed in doing that.
Did you?
I did.
Which is an incredibly fascinating, I mean, low tech device, but incredibly fascinating device. So, you want to talk about a fascinating man
Oh,
and a person who has infinite knowledge on things on this side and on the other. So, I have to ask you this, Susan. Of all the things that you've learned from Dr. Raymond Moody, has there any been? You can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. We'll do this. Of all the things that you've learned from Dr. Raymond Moody, is what's been one of those things that has just kind of gobsmacked you or just kind of hit you upside the head and went, you know, I've thought about that. Is that's one of those things that I've thought about, I've contemplated, and now you know what? You just mirrored something that I thought about, or that's one of those things that I've never thought about, but now it makes perfect sense.
Well, I think him telling me the well was probably the tunnel was pretty mind blowing for me. Um, at first, I just want to say that Raymond is the kindest, most generous soul I've ever met. And I mean that. I can't tell you how amazing he is and intelligent. My God. Um, he's a philosopher and he can tell you history, and psychomantium, by the way, comes from uh, that way back when they would go down into the caves and look into the water and they would see a reflection of spirits. It comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, For me, I think, Raymond doesn't know if he believes in mediumship, which is, I need to share that because it's very interesting. He saw me read someone and I think he was surprised. But I was very attached to him and he was my bucket list. And so I spent a lot of time talking to him when I was with him. And he, um, he said, I'm not sure what I believe in that. I'm on the fence, which is interesting because he believes in near-death experiences and everyone was on the fence with him,
Really?
so there you are. We don't have to take it to another level if we don't know for sure inside of ourselves, and I honor that. Um but I think with him, the thing that was so amazing to me was even when our stories of near-death experiences were different, he knew what we meant and they became familiar and similar, not by him manipulating it, but simply by him being able to explain it to us in a way that we just go, what? You just can't help yourself because everything I told him, he understood
Mm.
because he had heard it before, just in a different verbiage. And that was so affirming.
Yeah.
So why being with him was so amazing. And again, he is beyond kind. Um, I got to study in person with him and I studied online with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to do both. And mystical arts was what we got our doctorate in. It's the doctorate of divinity.
Mm-hmm.
And it just to be in his presence is a feeling of awe. It's awe. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
I would just sit and listen to him and the knowledge that comes out. His intelligence is beyond. And you can't deny it. The minute he starts speaking, and it doesn't go over your head, and that's what's so amazing, is he's so intelligent, yet he talks in a way that is at your level that you can understand. So I have obviously great admiration for this man.
Yeah.
And I felt love for him. Like can't explain it, but I just felt like I knew him.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and maybe it's because he studied in depth and he too has had a near death experience and shared death experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
So you can't help but be connected to someone who's had those experiences.
right. I think you've hit it on the head. It's no matter what experience you've had, he's very quick and to be accepting of it. One and two, willing to um help you not only work through it, but is very accepting of it, and then quick to help you want to explain it, but
And
not
understand. Yeah.
and understand it, but not color it in his vision. Right?
Right.
He's quick
Right.
to
And that's
yeah
amazing.
yeah.
So he is really good friends with Ben Alexander, the neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience. Evan never believed Raymond. He thought he was a nutcase doing that. Of friends, but like my friend is nutty. Like he's doing these near-death experiences and believing there's life after death. And I did a documentary that Eben Alexander and I were both in.
Hmm.
And he shares, about his experience. And mine is like minimal compared to flying on a butterfly as an amoeba.
Right.
And yet Raymond can make sense of that. The metaphorical journey, he can
Hmm.
make sense of it, so that when you listen to it, it's not, oh, he was just an amoeba flying on a butterfly. He flipped from Eben Alexander, flipped from never believing into mind-blowing belief, recognizing the empowerment of a near-death experience. Now, do I suggest people go have one? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I want to say that. But if it does happen, you will understand what he experienced. My journey was not bizarre at all as a child compared to what he went through. And yet I know his to be true simply because of what I experienced.
Yeah, I find that the variation in some people's near death experiences are interesting. I want to ask you a different question here that you probably don't get thrown a lot here, Susan. I had a guest on recently, uh, Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and she had brought up a notion I had not heard in quite some time. I'd heard it before, but not in quite some time. That's the idea that a trickster spirit can get involved in a near death experience. And the thing that was frightening to me about this was that a spirit that may not be of pure intention could jump into a near death experience and lead you astray and mess with you. Now, to me, that's the stuff of nightmares. Is this something you've heard of, run into in your practice? Is this anything that exists in your reality? Or
Absolutely not. Now,
no?
I want to say that I honor her belief system.
Okay.
It's hers, and she has a right to it.
Okay.
But I can tell you from my experience of being with the spirit world, that would never happen. They love us. They want good for us. I asked them, why do some people have um, hell in their experience? What is that? And they said to me, you will find that the people that go through that experience change their ways. And we have tried in every form to help them change and see their ways. They're usually doing things they shouldn't do. They're using drugs, or they're, harming people, or they're harming themselves. We've tried to convince them on in the life journey by having them have experiences. We know they're coming back. We let them see their own hell that they've created here.
Okay.
And unequivocally, every person I've ever asked, did you see hell when you crossed over? They say yes. They say to me, it changed my entire way of living, and I am a better person. And that's what they're trying to create. So
Okay.
they let them see what they need them to see. They let them see both almost always, but they let them see what they need to see. And they know they're coming back, and it's their way of getting them to make changes because nothing's worked. It's their hell they're seeing that they've created on their journey. So that is not a trickster spirit. That is an experience to make change, which was what we have here, isn't it? Well,
Yeah.
the reason we make changes here is because we have experiences that we don't like. And pain is our greatest motivator for change. And so they create that for them. Um, I've never heard of a child that saw hell. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so.
Um, so I would be very shocked if I heard that. But nonetheless, I do not believe that spirit would ever allow that. They love us. They are love. And these stories that I hear out there, sometimes I'm appalled by them. I still honor them and I respect them, but I'm shocked by them because they don't fit into what I learned, what I saw, what I understand, what they've shared with me. They just don't. Now we have a leftover energy. So if we're an evil person living on this planet, there's a leftover energy. It's an imprint. We imprint on everything. We are energy. How
Mhm.
can we not? I imprint on my phone. I'm energy.
Yeah.
Um, And if I have evil intent, that imprint will be there in some way. But that is not on the other side. That's here.
So to clarify and go one step further, if you're doing evil, doesn't necessarily mean you're completely evil. You can shed that, go forward and onto the other side, and you kind of shed that evil skin, so to speak, and then there's a pure form of you that moves on.
So, yes, and I say it this way, evil is in the minds of mankind, or man, they call it. Evil's in the minds of man. Now, I don't mean men, I mean man,
Yeah, man.
mankind. Okay. Um, when we leave here, our soul travels with us, and a heart space is our memory that we need. So the heart carries 40,000 neurons. That is a proven fact. It speaks to the brain more than the brain speaks to the heart. That is a proven fact. It is a mini brain. This is neurologically proven. And it carries memory capacity, learning capacity, etc. It holds the memories we need. Our soul seats in our heart. So when we leave here, the memories that we need to help us on our next incarnation, or to help us recognize what we don't want to be and what we do want to be, because we don't know what we do want to be if we don't know what we don't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
We learn from the negative. That goes with us. So our brain is so full of gunk and crap, it doesn't travel with us. And so how beautiful is that? And our souls, I will tell you this, what they told me and what I understand is that our souls are never damaged. They created our soul to be our healing place. So if my soul could be damaged and your soul could be damaged, there'd be nowhere to go to heal and to become well again emotionally when we go through traumas. Those traumas teach us, but we need a healing mechanism, and that's the soul. The soul is pure. It comes from spirit. It is the vine to the divine. It is how they teach us, heal us, nurture us, love us. So there is no dark soul, but there are dark men and there are dark minds.
Excellent. All right. All right. All right. See, you're learning me here, Susan. You're learning me.
Yeah,
Um, my improper English, but you're learning me.
I
Um,
love it.
with that, with that being said, you had mentioned that you get for the people who are maybe going on the wrong path, you get the taste of hell. I have to ask you, of course, with my Catholic upbringing, where does purgatory fit into this whole deal?
Don't believe in it.
You don't believe in
I
it?
think we're here.
Okay. So,
I think we're here. We are, and that's in our minds, obviously. They didn't send us to be in a purgatory. That's a word. It's a word like every other word. Heaven's a word. That doesn't mean that's what they call it. That's the word we make out of it. So our human mind has to have words. That's why there are no words to describe a near-death experience, because we don't have human words for it.
uh,
But we use our human words to describe all these different things because we have to in
okay.
order to have linguistics. That's the simplicity of it, if we simplify it. Um, the purgatory is a word we use for punishment. They don't punish us. They love us. When I was there, I was watching people crossing over. This was the second experience I had. And I was watching these beautiful angelic beings, and when they would speak, basically, the words and the music came out at the same time, and they were, I don't know how to describe that, like the whale song. And they were patting everyone on the back and telling them, good job, you're so brave. You were so brave to go there. Good job. But they still had to look at what they didn't do correctly. And what I did see in the life review was everything we do, good and bad, comes before us, or good and negative, let's say, the seemingly bad, comes before us, and we have to experience it as though it's us. So if I commit a child crime, I'm going to feel as that child felt so that I fully understand the nature of what I chose to do while I was doing this journey. Once we understand something to that full nature, our souls then clean it up. Almost like going to a hospital, you get medicine for it
Mhm.
and you get well. I don't believe we drop right into the general population until we've gone through that.
So, if I may, how does now you'd mentioned when you were in this room of knowledge or room where we may call it Akashic records. I know you don't like that term.
Oh, I
Um,
don't mind it. I just don't relate to it. That's all.
okay, you don't relate to it. Um, how does reincarnation fit into this whole thing? So it's not that I don't struggle to realize it, but how do we how do we ascend as a soul then? Is there an end point to this whole game?
Yes.
Is there a point where we just decide we're done coming back to this earth?
Yes. Well, our life path is what teaches us what our soul path is, which is self-love. Love. The love is the hierarchy. The higher you love, the higher you vibrate. And I will tell you that I personally, in my heart, cannot fully love myself. I am struggling with that on a daily basis. There is impossible to believe that I could do that in one lifetime. But love guides us to source, which is pure love. So the higher we love, or the more we love, the higher we vibrate. We have to try over and over again to live a journey of self-love, true self-love. I believe Buddha did that, and some other ascending masters. Um, uh, uh, Jesus was an ascended master, I believe. He had full self-love. He never questioned himself. He loved and he gave, and the higher vibrational energy. Jesus was an amazing, gifted soul who loved extensively everyone. And that's documented. So Buddha the same, pure love. It leads us to the brightest of light, which is source, what we call God, some of us, source. So that's how we do it. And that's why we keep coming back, because we don't achieve it so easily. I cannot tell you that I will, on this journey, fully understand love, unconditional love that I felt on the other side. But I try to reach it, and I want to reach it, and I will come back until I do, so that I can blend with the beauty of source.
But is that the only thing that gets you to that end game? Is there a point where you just put your sword down and say, you know what? I think
No,
I think I'm done.
no. And, remember that there's other dimensions going on. Quantum physics tells us that. If you study it, you'll see that there's no way to deny it.
Yeah.
It is scientifically tells us that. And there's other dimensions going on. So we're learning very rapidly in different dimensions too, just like we're learning here. And so it's not, that we have to do this for eternity to
Hmm.
get there,
Hmm.
because we are learning fully and as a unit, as one consciousness.
Okay. Um, as we're starting to get close to the end of our time here, let me ask you about new souls, because you always hear somebody say, "Well, I'm not an old soul; I'm a new soul." What differentiates the two? How do you know someone is newer to the
Those
planet
always
than
are
the
and
old?
always will be, but a new soul would be considered one that has not spent much time or hasn't been to this particular dimension.
How do you
So on the planet, let's say,
how do you
on this
different
planet.
how do you differentiate one from the other or know that you're newer or older?
I feel the old souls go through more,
You think so?
so they can handle it. When you meet a new soul, usually they'll feel very light and very airy and very like one that has never been here, that doesn't know what they're going to experience here, almost childlike, and they say, I've never had anything bad happen. I can't imagine. Whoa, and they back away. And an old soul is, I can do this. And I've done it and I can do it and I'm going to survive it and I'm going to get through it. So, I was at a class one time, and the teacher was talking about the children that are starving in Africa, and how they're new souls and they have to go through these experiences. And I kept hearing, raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand. And I was like, no, I'm not raising my hand. And they're like, raise your hand. So I ended up getting up, and this stuff came out of my mouth from spirit. It was like a download. And I said, you're so wrong. It's the opposite. I said, why are they here? To teach us, to remind us of compassion, of love unconditionally, of generosity of spirit, of generosity of love, of generosity of funds. We that comes up on the TV. I'm whining about the fact that I hurt my ankle, and I see that on the TV. I go right to, oh my God, I need to stop complaining here. I have so much compassion for this child that's starving in Africa, or wherever it is, Ethiopia, it doesn't matter. In our country, it brings us to a better level of compassion and love. So they are there for a reason, to teach us, and they've given of their souls to do that for us. That is not a new soul. They couldn't
Yeah.
live through it.
I've always been told that it's the person that goes through the most pain is the one that's doing the most soul growth. And chances are, if they're going through that much pain, the more pain they're going through, the older the soul.
I
Because,
agree.
yeah, because
I mean, look at my journey.
yeah, yeah, you can't have
How,
a new soul go through that much.
no, I mean, I've had five suicides. Two were friends. Three were family members, both my brother and my mother. And my mother died from complications of attempted suicide. And um, you don't go through those things as a new soul and be able to handle them.
Yeah.
When you have those experiences and you can remain here, it tells me the old soul that you are, and that you're willing to reach out and want to heal and grow. And do we want to go through those experiences? Absolutely not. I would never want to go through that again. But I know that because of it, I am more, and I can help others, not in spite of it. And that may be the difference.
Not only just go through it, but now you've put yourself into a career where you're reaching out to others and wanting to help them with their issues as well.
Yeah,
Which
ask a psychologist if, ask a psychologist if they had a perfect life. No, what brought them there was that they had to heal, and they want to help others. And it's usually the trauma that makes them, want that area of expertise.
so does that make you a humanitarian or a masochist? Which
I think a humanitarian, but I get
okay,
what you're saying,
yeah,
it makes me wonder sometimes, because I drive home after hearing about a mother, I'm talking to a mother and a father, and I'm watching them in horror and pain and suffering because their child um, died by suicide. And I come home and I'm crying the whole way home, and I have to be professional when I'm listening to them. But on the way home, I'm feeling their pain. So maybe that is a bit masochistic, but I know ultimately that it's for the greatest good of them, and that I can do this. And so I remind myself, it's not my pain. My pain's mine, and this is theirs. And I have to honor their pain by not making it about me.
right.
But I let myself feel.
Which brings an interesting question. Um, you can tell yourself that in your in your business as a practitioner, but then on a psychic level, how do you separate your pain from a spirit's pain? Because they will show you their pain, correct? When as a medium, when they show you the way they died, or they are trying to show you something, don't they do it through feeling? Don't they communicate through giving
Sometimes through
giving
feeling.
you their
Um, they don't come with pain. They show us the experience.
okay,
They are very aware that the experience for them um, was a lesson, or became a lesson. I tell people, spirit doesn't give you trauma. We go through trauma. What does spirit do with us? They show us where to shine our light, which is usually on us. So when we cross over, that pain does not follow us. That would be a terrible place to be. So when they come to visit me, I'm obviously not able to rise to the vibration of the spirit world. We meet. I can rise, but I can't rise all the way. And they come down and they interact with me.
Okay.
They're not showing me their emotional pain. They're
Uh,
showing me their experience.
okay. So it's easier to digest.
Oh, much. I
Okay.
know they're not in pain up there.
Okay.
I know that. The pain that I experience is the pain of the loved one that's here. I feel that pain. And I have to remind myself, somebody lost their child. I'm driving home going, oh my God, what if I lose my child? What if I lose my child? I don't know if I can deal with that. And I have to stop and say, not today, Susan, not today. And that helps me greatly. People ask me, this question is the question that I hear the most. Why can't I see my loved one? Why can't I feel them? I need them to visit me. I tell them the story of the sloth, the butterfly, and the hummingbird that I created to make sense of it. A sloth is as high vibrating as it is, and I love them. They're very slow in movement. A hummingbird would be like a medium. A sloth would be like a grieving person. They're at their lowest vibration, just like anger is a very low vibration. I am like the butterfly. I'm in the middle. I vibrate high enough to see them, but I don't get everything. I wish I could. And they're the butterfly. By the time the sloth has turned to see the butterfly and experience what the butterfly want, or the hummingbird, and experience what the hummingbird wants it to know, the hummingbird has gone to 60,000 places. It moves so fast. The sloth is so slow moving. That's grief. Okay. The butterfly, again, is closer to it in vibration because they're not grieving. When you're in that grief, it is almost impossible to experience the hummingbird. So you need to raise your vibration. And who wants to do that when they're grieving? Nobody wants to dance. But I will tell you that dance is a higher vibration. It also moves the pain through you. It is one of the powerful ways to move through grief, by movement, body movement, that raises your vibration. But who wants to do that when they're grieving? So you are disconnected. It does not mean that they're not there. They are. They're there. So you go to a butterfly, a medium, to help you connect so that you recognize that they're there. And that raises your vibration in and of itself. So then we hope that you'll be able to experience their visits. We don't want you to keep coming to us over and over again because you have the ability to connect in. You're just in darkness right now, which is understandable. I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. One last question for you, Susan. That's this. I think it's more of a Hollywood thing than anything else, where you see a spirit on the other side that's maybe been done wrong or had a traumatic death, um, a spirit that's been murdered, maybe or something to that effect. And you see the old Hollywood trope of they want vengeance, or they want someone to find their killer, something to that effect. Do you find that there is a spirit out there that truly wants vengeance, or truly needs some sort of?
No. The reason that they lead us to their killers, I do forensics,
Mhm.
mediumship, forensic mediumship. The reason that they lead us to the killers or what happened to them is to help their family have closure and to make sure no one else goes through it. If they could guide us to all of them, they would. They would. We don't know the beginning, middle, and the end. They understand that. Maybe they're not meant to be found. I had to accept that doing forensics, that maybe they're not meant to be found because they know it would traumatize their family more. We don't know the beginning, middle, and end. We have to accept. And it's a trust factor, just like believing in the spirit world is a trust factor, that we have to allow it to be what it is. But no, they are not in vengeance. That is not what they want. They want healing for their family and closure.
Yeah, I know that that tends to be the Hollywood line, or the typical book line, or storyline that
I know.
they.
Oh, it's kind of like you watch in Hollywood where and I see this in groups, and I don't even know what to do inside, where they're saying, go to the light, because they think they're not going to the light. And I tell my students, I cannot do what spirit can't do here, people. If spirit couldn't cross into the light, how in the world can I? That's ridiculous to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't need help going to the light. They are the light.
Right.
And when we understand that, we're actually, what is that? It's like we're saying one thing, but our words and our actions aren't aligning. And a medium will tell you we're the light, and that spirit loves us. And so why would we need to help them get to the light? It makes no sense to me. But it's another thing of what we see all the time. So do I honor that that's what they believe they need to do? Yes, I do, but it doesn't make sense for me. The spirit world makes sense. It is not, they're not the author of confusion.
Yeah.
They make sense. And if we just allow it to make sense instead of listening to things, if I say, take what you like and leave the rest. Take what you understand that makes sense to you and leave the rest behind, because there's a lot floating out there.
Yeah. Most definitely. Most definitely. Well, the book is amazing. It is out there right now. I encourage you to go get a copy of it. The name of the book, which again is available right now. We have a link in the description of this program. Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, Wisdom from the Spirit World on Living, Dying, and the In-Between. Susan Grau has been our guest. Susan, I want to thank you so much for being with us today on Darkness Radio.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
Thank you.
For more audio and video archives of the show, intriguing content, and cool swag, please visit darknessradioshow.com. Thanks for watching, and remember to go out and be a light in someone's darkness today.